The rain drummed against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Marcus Blackwood's penthouse office, each droplet catching the amber glow of the city lights 30 floors below. At 42, Marcus had built an empire from nothing, transforming a small tech startup into a multinational corporation worth billions. His sharp jawline and piercing gray eyes reflected the ruthless determination that had carried him to the top. But tonight, those same eyes held an unusual softness as he reviewed the quarterly reports spread across his mahogany desk. The intercom buzzed, interrupting his concentration. "Mr. Blackwood," came his assistant's voice. "Little Sophia is here to see you." Marcus's expression immediately brightened. He set down his pen and straightened his tie, preparing to welcome the one person who could make him forget about stock prices and board meetings. "Send her in, please." The heavy oak door opened, and in walked 8-year-old Sophia Chun, her small frame dwarfed by the grandeur of the office. Her long black hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and she wore her school uniform, a navy blue jumper over a white blouse, knee-high socks, and polished black shoes. But something was wrong. Her usually bright brown eyes were red-rimmed with tears, and her small hands trembled as she clutched her pink backpack. "Sophia, sweetheart," Marcus said, immediately rising from his chair and moving around the desk. "What's wrong?" The little girl looked up at him, her bottom lip quivering. Marcus had been her guardian for 3 years now, ever since her parents died in a car accident. Her mother had been his business partner and closest friend, and when tragedy struck, Marcus hadn't hesitated to take Sophia in. Despite his wealth and success, he'd never married or had children of his own, but Sophia had filled a void in his life he hadn't even known existed. "Uncle Marcus," she whispered, using the name she'd called him since she was 5. "I need to tell you something." Marcus knelt down to her level, his expensive suit wrinkling as he brought himself to her height. "What is it, princess? You can tell me anything." Sophia's small body began to shake, and tears started flowing down her cheeks. "It's Miss Caroline," she said, referring to her private tutor. She hurt me." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. His protective instincts, honed by years of caring for Sophia, immediately kicked into high gear. "What do you mean she hurt you, sweetheart? Can you tell me exactly what happened?" Sophia wiped her nose with the back of her hand, looking around the office as if making sure they were alone. "She said I was stupid," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "She said I'd never be smart like you, and that I was wasting your money on my education." Marcus felt his jaw clench, but he kept his voice gentle. "That's not true, Sophia. You're one of the smartest little girls I know. But is that all that happened?" Sophia shook her head, fresh tears spilling over. "She grabbed my arm really hard when I couldn't solve a math problem. She squeezed it and shook me. And she said if I told you, she'd make sure I never got to see you again." The rage that built in Marcus's chest was unlike anything he'd ever experienced. He'd faced hostile takeovers, dealt with corporate espionage, and navigated the cutthroat world of business for decades. But nothing had prepared him for the fury he felt at the thought of someone hurting his little girl. "Show me your arm, sweetheart," he said, his voice carefully controlled. Sophia hesitated for a moment, then rolled up the sleeve of her white blouse. On her small forearm were 5 distinct bruises, purple and yellow, clearly in the shape of adult fingers. Marcus's vision went red for a moment, but he forced himself to remain calm for Sophia's sake. "Sophia, I want you to listen to me very carefully," he said, gently taking her small hands in his much larger ones. "You did the right thing by telling me. Miss Caroline will never hurt you again, I promise you that. And she will never, ever separate us. Do you understand?" Sophia nodded, throwing her small arms around Marcus's neck. He held her close, feeling her tiny body shake with sobs. "I was so scared, Uncle Marcus. I thought you might not believe me." "I will always believe you, princess," Marcus said firmly. "Always. You're the most important person in my world, and I will never let anyone hurt you." As he held Sophia, Marcus's mind was already working, formulating a plan. Caroline Winters had come highly recommended when he'd hired her 6 months ago. She had impeccable credentials, a master's degree in education from an Ivy League school, and glowing references from previous employers. She was supposed to be the best private tutor money could buy. "Sophia," Marcus said gently, pulling back to look at her face. "I need to ask you some more questions, okay? I know it's hard, but I need to understand everything that happened." Sophia nodded bravely, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. How long has Miss Caroline been treating you this way? About 2 weeks, Sophia said. It started after you went on that business trip to Tokyo. She was different when you weren't around. Marcus remembered that trip. He'd been gone for 5 days, negotiating a major acquisition. He'd called every night to check on Sophia, and she'd seemed fine, even cheerful. The thought that she'd been suffering while he was away made his stomach turn. What else did she do, sweetheart? Besides grabbing your arm? Sophia looked down at her hands. She made me sit in the corner for hours when I got answers wrong. She wouldn't let me have lunch until I finished all my work perfectly. And she said, Sophia's voice broke. She said my parents died because they were disappointed in me. The last statement hit Marcus like a sledgehammer. He'd spent 3 years helping Sophia work through the trauma of losing her parents, countless hours with child psychologists and therapists, and now this woman had undone all that progress with her cruelty. Sophia, look at me, Marcus said, his voice firm but gentle. Your parents loved you more than anything in the world. They were proud of you every single day. They didn't die because of anything you did. It was an accident, remember? We've talked about this. Sophia nodded, but Marcus could see the doubt in her eyes that Caroline had planted there. I want you to go to your room now, Marcus said, standing up. Mrs. Patterson will bring you some hot chocolate and cookies. I have some work to do, but I'll come check on you in a little while, okay? Sophia looked up at him with concern. You're not going to fire Miss Caroline, are you? She said if I told you anything, she'd make sure something bad happened to you too. Marcus knelt down again, taking Sophia's face gently in his hands. Princess, I want you to listen to me very carefully. Miss Caroline cannot hurt me. She cannot hurt you anymore. And she will never, ever come to this house again. I'm going to take care of everything, and you don't need to worry about anything except being a kid and having fun. Can you trust me to handle this? Sophia nodded, and Marcus could see some of the tension leave her small shoulders. He walked her to the door, calling for Mrs. Patterson, his longtime housekeeper and the closest thing Sophia had to a grandmother figure. Mrs. Patterson, Marcus said when the elderly woman appeared. Please take Sophia to her room and stay with her. Make sure she has everything she needs. I'll be up to see her later. Mrs. Patterson, who had been with Marcus for over a decade, immediately sensed something was wrong. She looked at Sophia's tear-stained face and then at Marcus's tense expression. Of course, Mr. Blackwood. Come along, dear, she said to Sophia, taking the little girl's hand. As soon as they were gone, Marcus returned to his office and closed the door. He walked to his desk and picked up his phone, dialing a number he knew by heart. James, it's Marcus, he said when his head of security answered. I need you to come to the penthouse immediately. We have a situation. James Morrison had been Marcus's head of security for 8 years. A former FBI agent with a reputation for thoroughness and discretion, he'd handled everything from corporate espionage to stalkers. But Marcus had never heard the ice-cold fury in his boss's voice that he heard now. I'll be there in 20 minutes, James said without asking questions. While he waited, Marcus paced his office, his mind racing. He thought about all the times Caroline had been alone with Sophia, all the opportunities she'd had to hurt his little girl. The thought made him sick. He'd trusted this woman with the most precious thing in his life, and she'd betrayed that trust in the worst possible way. Marcus walked to his safe and pulled out a small digital recorder. He'd learned long ago that in business, it was crucial to document everything. He was going to make sure Caroline Winters never hurt another child again. 20 minutes later, James arrived at the penthouse. He was a tall, lean man in his early 50s with salt and pepper hair and sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. He took one look at Marcus's face and knew this was serious. What's the situation? James asked, settling into one of the leather chairs across from Marcus's desk. Marcus told him everything Sophia had revealed, showing him the photos he'd taken of the bruises on her arm with his phone. As he spoke, James's expression grew darker and darker. I want you to investigate Caroline Winters, Marcus said. I want to know everything about her. Where she's worked, who she's worked for, any complaints or incidents. I want her entire life under a microscope. Consider it done, James said. What about the immediate situation? Do you want me to confront her? Marcus shook his head. Not yet. I want to know exactly who we're dealing with first. But I also want you to install additional security cameras in the house, particularly in the areas where Sophia spends time. If Caroline has been doing this for 2 weeks, there might be other incidents we don't know about. I'll have the cameras installed tonight, James said. What about Sophia's tutoring? Is Caroline supposed to come tomorrow? Marcus checked his calendar. Yes, she's scheduled for a 3-hour session tomorrow afternoon. I want you to be here, but I want her to think everything is normal. Can you set up surveillance without her knowing? Absolutely. I'll have audio and video recording everything. If she so much as raises her voice to Sophia, we'll have it on tape. Marcus nodded. Good. I also want you to reach out to your contacts in child services and law enforcement. I want to know what our options are for prosecution. Marcus, James said carefully, I have to ask. Are you sure about this? I mean, I believe Sophia completely, but Caroline Winters came with impeccable references. This could be a career-ending accusation. Marcus's eyes went cold. James, I've seen the bruises on my daughter's arm. I've seen the fear in her eyes. Caroline Winters' career is the least of my concerns right now. The use of the word daughter wasn't lost on James. Though Marcus had never legally adopted Sophia, he'd always considered her his daughter in every way that mattered. I'll get started on the investigation immediately, James said, standing up. I should have preliminary information by tomorrow morning. After James left, Marcus went upstairs to check on Sophia. He found her in her room with Mrs. Patterson, sitting on her bed with a cup of hot chocolate and a plate of chocolate chip cookies. She looked up when he entered, and he was relieved to see that some color had returned to her cheeks. How are you feeling, princess? He asked, sitting down on the edge of her bed. Better, Sophia said. Mrs. Patterson told me stories about when you were younger and all the trouble you used to get into. Marcus shot a look at Mrs. Patterson, who smiled innocently. Did she now? I hope she didn't tell you about the time I tried to build a rocket in the garage. Sophia giggled, the first genuine laugh Marcus had heard from her all evening. She did. She said you almost burned down the whole house. Almost being the key word, Marcus said with a smile. I was very careful about my explosions. Sophia's laughter died down, and she looked at Marcus seriously. Uncle Marcus, what's going to happen to Miss Caroline? Marcus chose his words carefully. Miss Caroline is not going to be your tutor anymore. We're going to find you someone new, someone who will be kind and patient and help you learn. But what if she comes back? What if she's angry that I told you? Marcus took Sophia's small hand in his. She's not going to come back, sweetheart. I promise you that. And even if she tried, she'd have to get through me first, and I'm much bigger and stronger than she is. Sophia smiled at that. You are pretty big. I am indeed. Now, I think it's time for you to get ready for bed. Tomorrow is Saturday, which means no lessons and no homework. We can do whatever you want. Sophia's eyes lit up. Can we go to the park? And maybe get ice cream? We can absolutely go to the park and get ice cream, Marcus said. And we can go to the toy store and the bookstore and anywhere else you want to go. As Marcus tucked Sophia into bed that night, he made a silent promise to himself and to her parents, wherever they were. He would protect this little girl with everything he had. Caroline Winters had made a terrible mistake in hurting Sophia, and she was going to pay for it. The next morning, Marcus was up early, pacing his office while he waited for James to arrive with his preliminary report. He'd barely slept, his mind churning with anger and plans for justice. When James finally arrived at 8 o'clock, Marcus was ready. What did you find? Marcus asked without preamble. James set a thick folder on Marcus's desk. More than I expected, and none of it good. Caroline Winters has been fired from 3 previous positions in the last 5 years. All for inappropriate conduct with children. Marcus felt his blood run cold. What kind of inappropriate conduct? Verbal abuse, physical intimidation, and in one case, actual physical assault. A 6-year-old boy ended up with a dislocated shoulder after she grabbed him too hard during a tantrum. How the hell did she get hired with a record like that? Marcus demanded. She's been using fake references, James explained. She has a network of people who pose as former employers and give her glowing recommendations. It's a sophisticated operation. She's been doing this for years. Marcus sank into his chair, overwhelmed by the implications. How many children has she hurt? Based on what I've found so far, at least a dozen. Probably more. The families she's worked for are all wealthy, and she's very good at targeting situations where the parents are busy or travel frequently. She knows exactly how to manipulate the situation. What about law enforcement? Have any of the previous families pressed charges? James shook his head grimly. That's the worst part. She's very careful about who she targets. She goes after families where the parents are high profile, where a scandal would be damaging. She uses that as leverage to avoid prosecution. The families pay her off, and she moves on to the next victim. Marcus stood up abruptly, his chair rolling backward. Well, she picked the wrong family this time. I don't care about scandals or publicity. I care about protecting my daughter and making sure this woman never hurts another child. I was hoping you'd say that, James said. I've already reached out to Detective Sarah Chun with the NYPD. She specializes in crimes against children, and she's very interested in talking to us. Chun, Marcus asked, any relation to Sophia? Actually, yes. Sarah is Sophia's cousin on her mother's side. She's been wanting to build a case against Caroline for months, but she needed victims willing to testify. Marcus felt a surge of hope. Having a family member in law enforcement would make this process much easier. When can we meet with her? This afternoon, if you're available. She's coming here at 2 o'clock, an hour before Caroline is scheduled to arrive for Sophia's lesson. Perfect. What about the surveillance equipment? Already installed. We have cameras and microphones in the study where Caroline conducts the lessons, as well as in the hallway and living room. Everything will be recorded in high definition. Marcus nodded. Good. I want to catch her in the act. I want evidence that's so overwhelming that she can't lie her way out of it. At 2 o'clock that afternoon, Detective Sarah Chun arrived at the penthouse. She was a petite woman in her mid-30s with intelligent dark eyes and an air of quiet authority. Marcus could see the family resemblance to Sophia immediately. Mr. Blackwood, she said, shaking his hand. Thank you for agreeing to cooperate with our investigation. I know this must be difficult for you. Call me Marcus, he said. And thank you for taking this seriously. I want to make sure Caroline Winters never hurts another child. Detective Chun nodded. That's exactly what we intend to do. I've been tracking her for months, but I needed families willing to come forward. Most of her previous victims have been too scared or too embarrassed to testify. What do you need from us? Marcus asked. First, I need to interview Sophia. I know it's hard, but I need to get her statement on record. Then, I need you to let Caroline come for today's lesson as planned. We'll be recording everything, and if she does anything inappropriate, we'll have grounds for immediate arrest. Marcus hesitated. I don't want to put Sophia through any more trauma. I understand your concern, Detective Chun said gently. But if we don't catch Caroline in the act, she'll just deny everything and move on to her next victim. We need solid evidence to make charges stick. What if she hurts Sophia again? We'll be monitoring everything in real time. The moment she does anything inappropriate, we'll intervene. I promise you, we won't let her hurt Sophia. Marcus thought about it for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but I want to be able to stop this at any time if I think Sophia is in danger. Absolutely, Detective Chun agreed. Now, can I speak with Sophia? Marcus called for Sophia, who came downstairs with Mrs. Patterson. When she saw Detective Chun, her eyes widened with recognition. Cousin Sarah, she exclaimed, running over to hug the detective. Hi, sweetheart, Detective Chun said, hugging Sophia back. I heard you've been having some trouble with your tutor. Sophia's expression became serious. She's been really mean to me. She hurt my arm and said bad things about my parents. I know, honey. That's why I'm here. I need to ask you some questions about what happened, okay? It might be hard to talk about, but it's really important. For the next hour, Detective Chun gently questioned Sophia about her experiences with Caroline. Sophia was remarkably articulate for an 8-year-old, providing detailed accounts of the verbal and physical abuse she'd endured. Marcus had to leave the room several times, unable to listen to the full extent of what his little girl had suffered. She's very brave, Detective Chun told Marcus when the interview was over. And her testimony is very credible. Combined with the physical evidence and what we captured today, we should have a strong case. At 3 o'clock, Caroline Winters arrived for Sophia's lesson. Marcus watched from his office via the surveillance feed as she entered the study where Sophia was waiting. Caroline was an attractive woman in her early 30s with blonde hair and blue eyes. She looked like the perfect nanny or tutor, which Marcus now realized was exactly the image she cultivated. Good afternoon, Sophia, Caroline said, her voice sickeningly sweet. I hope you're ready to work hard today. Yes, Miss Caroline, Sophia replied quietly. For the first 30 minutes, Caroline maintained her facade of professionalism. She reviewed Sophia's homework and began working on new math problems. But Marcus could see the tension building in her body language. The way her smile became more forced as Sophia struggled with a particularly difficult problem. Sophia, We've been over this concept multiple times, Caroline said, her voice taking on a sharp edge. Why can't you understand something so simple? I'm sorry, Miss Caroline, Sophia said, her voice small. I'm trying my best. Your best isn't good enough, Caroline snapped. Do you have any idea how much money your guardian is paying me to teach you? And this is what I get in return? A stupid little girl who can't even do basic arithmetic. Marcus felt his hands clench into fists as he watched the screen. In the surveillance room, Detective Chun and James were recording everything. I'm not stupid, Sophia said quietly, showing more courage than Marcus had expected. Caroline's face darkened. Don't you dare talk back to me, she said, reaching across the table and grabbing Sophia's wrist. I told you what would happen if you didn't behave. You're hurting me, Sophia said, tears starting to form in her eyes. Good, Caroline said, tightening her grip. Maybe now you'll pay attention. That was enough for Marcus. He burst out of his office and headed for the study, but Detective Chun was already moving. She and two uniformed officers who had been waiting in the hallway entered the study just as Caroline was shaking Sophia by the shoulders. NYPD, let go of the child and step back. Detective Chun commanded, her weapon drawn. Caroline immediately released Sophia and stepped back, her face going pale. I was just trying to help her with her homework. By physically assaulting her, Detective Chun asked, turn around and put your hands behind your back. This is a misunderstanding, Caroline protested as the officers moved to arrest her. I would never hurt a child. Caroline Winters, you're under arrest for child abuse, assault, and endangering the welfare of a minor, Detective Chun said as she cuffed Caroline. You have the right to remain silent. As the officers led Caroline away, Marcus rushed to Sophia, who was crying and shaking. He scooped her up in his arms, holding her close. It's okay, princess, he whispered. It's over. She's never going to hurt you again. I was so scared, Sophia sobbed into his shoulder. But I remembered what you said about being brave. You were incredibly brave, Marcus said. I'm so proud of you. Detective Chun approached them, her expression gentle. Sophia, you did great. Because of your courage, we're going to be able to make sure Miss Caroline can't hurt any other children. Really? Sophia asked, looking up at her cousin. Really? She's going to jail for a very long time. Over the next few weeks, the case against Caroline Winters built rapidly. The surveillance footage from Marcus's penthouse, combined with Sophia's testimony and evidence from her previous victims, created an overwhelming case. Other families began coming forward, no longer afraid to speak out now that someone had taken the first step. Marcus hired the best child psychologist in the city to help Sophia work through her trauma. Dr. Elizabeth Harper was a kind, patient woman who specialized in helping children recover from abuse. Under her care, Sophia began to heal, slowly regaining her confidence and trust. She's remarkably resilient, Dr. Harper told Marcus during one of their sessions. The fact that she felt safe enough to tell you what was happening shows that she has a strong foundation of trust and security. That's going to be crucial for her recovery. I just want her to be okay, Marcus said. I want her to be able to trust people again. She will, Dr. Harper assured him. It's going to take time, but she's going to be fine. The most important thing is that she knows she's safe and loved. Marcus also made sure to find Sophia a new tutor, this time going through an exhaustive vetting process. He interviewed dozens of candidates, ran extensive background checks, and even hired a private investigator to verify every reference. When he finally found Margaret Sullivan, a retired elementary school teacher with 40 years of experience and a spotless record, he felt confident that Sophia would be in good hands. Margaret was everything Caroline wasn't: kind, patient, encouraging, and genuinely invested in Sophia's success. She worked with Sophia to rebuild her confidence in learning, celebrating small victories, and providing gentle guidance when she struggled. You're such a smart girl, Sophia, Margaret would say when Sophia solved a difficult problem. I'm so proud of how hard you're working. Under Margaret's tutelage, Sophia began to flourish academically. Her love of learning, which Caroline had nearly destroyed, slowly returned. She started asking questions again, exploring new subjects, and showing the curiosity that had always been one of her most endearing qualities. The legal proceedings against Caroline moved forward steadily. She was charged with multiple counts of child abuse, assault, and fraud. The evidence against her was overwhelming, and her lawyer advised her to accept a plea deal rather than go to trial. She's looking at 15 to 20 years, Detective Chin told Marcus during one of their meetings. With her record and the severity of the charges, she's not going to see the outside of a prison cell for a very long time. Good, Marcus said. What about the other children she hurt? Are they getting the help they need? Most of them are. Several families have reached out to thank you for having the courage to come forward. They said they were too scared to speak up before, but seeing you take action gave them the strength to do the same. Marcus felt a sense of satisfaction knowing that his decision to prosecute Caroline had helped other children and families. It didn't undo the harm she'd caused, but it prevented her from hurting anyone else. 6 months after Caroline's arrest, Marcus was in his office when Sophia burst through the door, her face glowing with excitement. Uncle Marcus! Uncle Marcus! She called, running to his desk. Look what Miss Margaret gave me. She held up a certificate with her name written in elegant script. It's an award for academic excellence. She says I'm one of the smartest students she's ever taught. Marcus felt his heart swell with pride as he looked at the certificate. This is wonderful, Princess. I'm so proud of you. Miss Margaret says I'm ready to start learning French, Sophia continued, bouncing on her toes with excitement. She says I have a natural talent for languages. Marcus smiled, remembering how Caroline had told Sophia she was stupid and would never amount to anything. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. That's fantastic, he said, pulling Sophia into a hug. We'll have to plan a trip to France so you can practice your French with native speakers. Really? Sophia's eyes widened with delight. Can we go to Paris and see the Eiffel Tower? We can go anywhere you want, Marcus said. You've worked so hard, and you deserve to celebrate your success. As he held his daughter, Marcus reflected on how much their lives had changed since that terrible night when Sophia had come to him in tears. The trauma of Caroline's abuse would always be part of their story, but it hadn't defined them or destroyed them. Instead, it had made them stronger, more aware of how precious their bond was. Dr. Harper had been right about Sophia's resilience. With love, support, and professional help, she had not only recovered from her ordeal, but had thrived. She was more confident now, more willing to speak up for herself, and more aware of her own worth. Uncle Marcus, Sophia said, pulling back to look at him. I want to tell you something. What is it, sweetheart? I'm glad I told you about Miss Caroline, even though it was scary. Miss Margaret says that when bad things happen, we should always tell someone we trust. Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. You absolutely did the right thing, Princess. And I want you to know that you can always tell me anything, no matter what. I will always believe you, and I will always protect you. I know, Sophia said with a smile. That's why you're the best daddy in the whole world. The word daddy hit Marcus like a lightning bolt. Sophia had never called him that before, always sticking to Uncle Marcus, even though he'd been her guardian for years. He felt his throat tighten with emotion. Sophia, he said carefully, did you just call me daddy? Sophia nodded, suddenly looking shy. Is that okay? I know you're not my real daddy, but you take care of me like one. And I love you like you're my real daddy. Marcus had to take a deep breath before he could respond. It's more than okay, sweetheart. It's the greatest honor anyone could give me. I love you too, more than you'll ever know. So I can call you daddy from now on. You can call me whatever feels right to you, Marcus said. But I have to tell you, being your daddy is the best job I've ever had. Sophia giggled and hugged him again. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, Princess. More than all the stars in the sky. That evening, Marcus called his lawyer to begin the process of formally adopting Sophia. He'd been thinking about it for months, but hearing her call him Daddy had crystallized his decision. He wanted to make their relationship official, to ensure that nothing could ever separate them. The adoption process took several months, but finally, the day arrived for their court hearing. Marcus wore his best suit, and Sophia wore a beautiful blue dress that matched her eyes. They sat in the courtroom, holding hands, as the judge reviewed their case. Mr. Blackwood, the judge said, you've been Sophia's guardian for over 3 years now. Why do you want to adopt her? Marcus stood up, his voice steady and clear. Your Honor, Sophia is already my daughter in every way that matters. She's the light of my life, the reason I get up every morning, and the person who taught me what unconditional love really means. I want to make our relationship official so that she knows, without any doubt, that she belongs with me forever. The judge smiled. And Sophia, do you want Mr. Blackwood to be your legal father? Sophia stood up beside Marcus, her small hand still clasped in his. Yes, Your Honor. He's already my daddy. He takes care of me and loves me and protects me. I want to be his real daughter. Then it's my pleasure to grant this adoption, the judge said, banging his gavel. Congratulations to the Blackwood family. As they left the courthouse, Marcus felt a sense of completion he'd never experienced before. Sophia was officially his daughter now, and nothing could ever change that. Daddy, Sophia said as they walked to the car. Can we get ice cream to celebrate? We can get ice cream and cake and anything else you want, Marcus said. This is the best day of my life. Mine too, Sophia said, swinging their joined hands. I'm so happy I'm really your daughter now. You were always really my daughter, Marcus said. The papers just make it official. A year later, Marcus was reading bedtime stories to Sophia when she looked up at him with a serious expression. Daddy, I want to tell you something. What is it, sweetheart? I'm not scared anymore. I used to have nightmares about Miss Caroline, but I don't anymore. Dr. Harper says that means I'm healing. Marcus felt his heart swell with pride and relief. That's wonderful, princess. I'm so proud of how brave and strong you've been. I think my real mommy and daddy would be proud too, Sophia said thoughtfully. They would be happy that you take such good care of me. I know they would be, Marcus said, kissing the top of her head. They loved you so much, and they would want you to be happy and safe. I am happy, Sophia said with a contented sigh. I have the best daddy in the world, and Miss Margaret is teaching me so many cool things, and Mrs. Patterson makes the best cookies ever. Marcus smiled, thinking about how different their lives were now compared to that terrible night when Sophia had come to him in tears. The ordeal with Caroline had been traumatic, but it had also brought them closer together and made them both stronger. Daddy, Sophia said sleepily, will you always protect me? Always, Marcus said without hesitation. That's what daddies do. They protect their little girls and make sure they're safe and loved. Good, Sophia said, closing her eyes. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, Princess. Sweet dreams. As Marcus turned off the light and quietly left Sophia's room, he reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. Caroline Winters had tried to hurt his daughter, but she had failed. Sophia was stronger, happier, and more confident than ever before. She had learned that she could trust the adults in her life to protect her, and that speaking up about abuse was not only okay, but necessary. The case against Caroline had sent ripples through the community of wealthy families who employed private tutors and nannies. Many had reevaluated their vetting processes and increased their oversight of the people they hired to care for their children. Several support groups had been formed for families who had experienced similar situations, and new legislation had been proposed to strengthen background check requirements for childcare workers. Marcus had also used his wealth and influence to establish a foundation dedicated to protecting children from abuse and helping survivors heal. The Sophia Blackwood Foundation provided funding for therapy, legal assistance, and educational programs designed to prevent child abuse. It was his way of ensuring that some good came from their terrible experience. Detective Sarah Chun had been promoted to lieutenant, partly due to her successful prosecution of Caroline Winters and several other high-profile child abuse cases. She remained close to Marcus and Sophia, visiting regularly and serving as an honorary aunt to the little girl she had helped save. Caroline Winters herself was serving a 25-year sentence in state prison. She had been denied parole twice and would not be eligible again for another 5 years. The other inmates, Marcus had heard through Detective Chun, did not look kindly upon those who hurt children. Caroline's time in prison was not pleasant, which Marcus felt was appropriate justice for the pain she had caused. Margaret Sullivan continued to serve as Sophia's tutor, and their relationship had blossomed into something more like a grandmother and granddaughter. Margaret often stayed for dinner after tutoring sessions, and she had become an integral part of their small family. Under her guidance, Sophia had not only caught up academically, but had actually advanced beyond her grade level in several subjects. Mrs. Patterson, now in her 70s, had been with Marcus for over a decade and showed no signs of slowing down. She doted on Sophia like the grandmother she'd never had, and Sophia adored her in return. The three of them, along with Margaret, had formed an unconventional but loving family unit. Dr. Harper continued to work with Sophia, though their sessions had become less frequent as Sophia's healing progressed. She had helped Sophia develop coping strategies for dealing with difficult emotions and had taught her to recognize the signs of inappropriate behavior from adults. Most importantly, she had helped Sophia understand that the abuse she had suffered was not her fault and that she deserved to be treated with kindness and respect. James Morrison remained Marcus's head of security, but his role had evolved to include protecting Sophia as well. He had become something of an uncle figure to her, teaching her self-defense techniques appropriate for her age and helping her feel safe and confident in the world. As the years passed, Sophia grew into a confident, intelligent, and compassionate young woman. She excelled in her studies, participated in various extracurricular activities, and maintained close friendships with her peers. The trauma of her experience with Caroline had not defined her or limited her potential. Instead, it had taught her valuable lessons about resilience, the importance of speaking up, and the power of having people who love and support you. When Sophia turned 16, she approached Marcus with a request that both surprised and moved him. "Dad," she said, using the shortened version of Daddy that she'd adopted as she got older. "I want to start volunteering with the foundation." Marcus looked up from his newspaper, intrigued. "What kind of volunteering did you have in mind?" "I want to help other kids who have been through what I went through. I want to show them that they can heal and be happy again." Marcus felt a surge of pride at his daughter's compassion and strength. "That's a wonderful idea, sweetheart. But are you sure you're ready for that? It might bring up some difficult memories." Sophia nodded firmly. "I've been thinking about it for a long time. Dr. Harper says that helping others can be part of the healing process, and I think I'm strong enough now to handle it." "I think you are too," Marcus said. "Let me talk to the foundation director and see what opportunities might be appropriate for someone your age." Sophia's volunteer work with the foundation became a passion for her. She worked with younger children who had experienced abuse, helping them feel less alone and showing them that recovery was possible. Her natural empathy and her own experience made her particularly effective at connecting with these vulnerable children. "She has a gift," the foundation's director told Marcus during one of their meetings. "The children respond to her in a way that's really remarkable. She gives them hope." Marcus wasn't surprised. Sophia had always been special, but her experience with Caroline had given her a depth of understanding and compassion that was unusual for someone her age. She had taken something terrible and transformed it into a source of strength and purpose. On Sophia's 18th birthday, Marcus threw her a party that was both a celebration of her coming of age and a recognition of how far they had both come since that dark period in their lives. The guest list included all the people who had become their chosen family over the years: Detective Chun, Dr. Harper, Margaret Sullivan, Mrs. Patterson, James Morrison, and many others who had supported them through their journey. As Marcus watched Sophia laugh and celebrate with her friends and family, he thought about the scared little girl who had come to him in tears 10 years earlier. That little girl had grown into a remarkable young woman who was preparing to attend Harvard University in the fall, where she planned to study psychology and social work. "You know," Detective Chin said, joining Marcus as he watched Sophia blow out her birthday candles, "I think about that case sometimes. How different things could have been if you hadn't taken it seriously, if you hadn't been willing to fight for her." Marcus nodded. "I think about it too. But I also think about how strong she is, how she refused to let what happened to her define her future." "She's lucky to have you as a father," Detective Chin said. "I'm the lucky one," Marcus replied. "She saved me as much as I saved her. She taught me what it means to love someone more than yourself." As the evening wound down and the guests began to leave, Sophia approached Marcus with a small wrapped package. "I have something for you, Dad," she said, holding out the gift. Marcus unwrapped it carefully, revealing a framed photograph of the two of them from the day of her adoption, along with a handwritten letter. He read the letter silently, his eyes filling with tears as he took in her words. "Dear Dad," the letter began, "I know I don't say it often enough, but I want you to know how grateful I am for everything you've done for me. You didn't just save me from a bad situation. You gave me a life filled with love, opportunity, and hope. You showed me that there are good people in the world who will fight for those they love. You taught me that I am worthy of respect and kindness. Most importantly, you gave me the courage to turn my pain into purpose. I love you more than words can express, and I am so proud to be your daughter. Thank you for never giving up on me, even when I had given up on myself. Love always, Sophia." Marcus looked up at his daughter, unable to speak for a moment. Finally, he managed to say, "Thank you, sweetheart. This is the most precious gift you could have given me. I mean every word," Sophia said, hugging him tightly. "You're my hero, Dad. You always have been." As Marcus held his daughter, he thought about the long journey that had brought them to this moment. It had begun with a crisis, with a little girl's cry for help and a man's determination to protect her. It had involved pain, trauma, and the hard work of healing. But it had also involved love, resilience, and the power of family to overcome even the darkest challenges. Caroline Winters had tried to break Sophia's spirit, but she had failed. Instead, she had inadvertently strengthened the bond between Marcus and Sophia and had inspired them both to work toward protecting other children from similar experiences. The foundation they had created together had helped hundreds of families, and Sophia's volunteer work had touched countless lives. As Sophia prepared to leave for college, Marcus felt a mixture of pride and sadness. He was proud of the young woman she had become, but he would miss having her at home every day. They had been through so much together, and their bond was unbreakable. "I'm going to miss you so much," he told her as they packed her belongings for the move to Cambridge. "I'll miss you too, Dad," Sophia said. "But I'm excited about the future. I want to make a difference in the world, the way you've made a difference in mine." "You already have made a difference," Marcus said. "You've made a difference in my life, and in the lives of all the children you've helped through the foundation." "That's just the beginning," Sophia said with determination. "I want to do more. I want to help change the system so that what happened to me doesn't happen to other kids." Marcus smiled, knowing that his daughter would indeed change the world. She had already changed his world completely, transforming him from a successful but emotionally distant businessman into a loving father who understood what truly mattered in life. Years later, when Sophia had graduated from Harvard and was working as a child psychologist specializing in trauma recovery, she would often reflect on the night she had run to Marcus in tears. It had been the worst night of her young life, but it had also been the beginning of her healing and her purpose. She had learned that speaking up about abuse was not just important for the victim, but for all the potential future victims who could be saved. She had learned that having someone who believes in you and fights for you can make all the difference in the world. And she had learned that even the darkest experiences can be transformed into sources of strength and purpose. Caroline Winters had intended to hurt her, but instead, she had inadvertently set in motion a series of events that would lead to Sophia becoming a powerful advocate for children's rights and a healer of trauma. The foundation that bore her name had grown into a national organization, and the legislation that had been passed in response to her case had protected countless children from predators like Caroline. The little girl who had cried to her millionaire father figure about being hurt by her tutor had grown into a woman who dedicated her life to ensuring that other children would never have to suffer in silence. And the man who had dropped everything to investigate and protect his daughter had learned that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in the love and trust of the people who mattered most. Their story was one of pain transformed into purpose, of trauma overcome through love and determination, and of a family bond that had been tested by fire and emerged stronger than ever. It was a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is always hope, and that sometimes the worst things that happen to us can lead to the most meaningful parts of our lives.